Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Andrew Forrest. I'm one of the co-hosts of Hills on the Diamond, brought to you by Hills on Franklin, a podcast where we talk everything diamond sports at UNC, Carolina baseball, Carolina softball. I am joined today yet again by Megan Smith, coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels softball team. Coach, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Oh, yeah. So, a bit of an up and down weekend. You guys go 2-2 on the weekend. Mizuno Showdown. Now, I know I'm kind of going out of order here, but normally you talked last week. I watched last week's episode with Chris. You talked last week about these events are normally, early on in the season, but I thought it was really cool to have this Mizuno Showdown at Anderson kind of mid-season. So talk about that for a second. How was that, having that kind of in the middle of the season as opposed to early on?
Yeah, totally different than we normally do, but our bye weekend landed in the middle of our conference season this year. So, we wanted to bring in more than just one team and have that tournament setting again, just to be able to get a few more games in than we normally would. So it was an exciting weekend, had really good competition come in. It was good 2-2 on the weekend. Would have liked to have done better, but it was great to have such a good team like Arizona State come in, and we had great crowds. So it was a fun weekend.
Yeah, you had Arizona State from obviously Arizona. I had to look up Marist. I did not know where Marist University was from. Mm-hmm. They're from, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but Poughkeepsie, New York. And then obviously we're here in Chapel Hill. So we had teams from almost every corner of the country. And like you said, you come out of the weekend, you split both doubleheaders. So those of you watching, if you didn't know, you guys played two on was it Friday and then two on Saturday, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And so you split the doubleheaders. What do you feel like your team showed in terms of resilience in those four games? It's hard to play two games in a day. So going 2-2, what do you think you got your team showed when it comes to resilience over the weekend?
Well, I think playing doubleheaders now is not normal. We're normally back to single games once our pre-conference schedule ends. So, playing doubleheaders is a challenge, but, it's definitely made for longer days and something that we haven't done in a while. But definitely, really tale of two teams this weekend from us. I think when we were facing Marist, we were very confident. We had great performances in the circle. And then flip side, that first game against Arizona State, I felt like we got great performance in the circle, but we were tight everywhere else. So, I felt like the same thing happened the following day. A totally different team showed up to play Arizona State that showed up to play Marist. And unfortunately for us, that we can't have those inconsistencies in how we show up. And that's why we resulted in, a 2-2 record. So disappointed with that, disappointed with the lack of consistency from our team. But definitely on Saturday showed a ton of fight and resilience coming up after that Arizona State game, which was so difficult and tough for our pitching staff to be able to bounce back and have Kendall throw the complete game, and for us to be that intentional about coming back differently. I got to give a lot of credit to our team for that. Really proud of how they did that on Saturday.
I'm glad you brought up Kendall. That was kind of my next question. There in the fourth game of the weekend, she has a complete game, 6 strikeouts, and only allows 1 earned run. What stood out to you about kind of her ability to command that game?
I thought she had a great weekend overall. I think even her game against Arizona State, she did a really good job against a powerful offense. And I think she just came in with confidence. She attacked the batters, and she really locked in on, each pitch one at a time. And, I think Kendall has shown some great moments this year. And I thought both outings from her were really, really strong. And she's crazy competitive. I mean, she is a competitive pitcher. And you saw that this weekend, attacking those hitters, even if she gave up a hit or gave up a run, bouncing back and going right at the hitters. I'm really proud of her effort this weekend.
Yeah. Kind of still sticking with that fourth game. We saw you guys brought the power out. Now, unfortunately, earlier in the weekend, the 29 game home run streak came to an end. I was hoping, we could get that into the 30s, maybe even the 40s. But hey, 29 games is absolutely incredible. But that came to an end. But then you guys bounced right back, and you had five homers in that fourth game of the weekend against Marist. You had Shelby Barbie, MC Eaton. They went back to back. What did you see differently in your team's approach in that fourth game that maybe you didn't see against Arizona State earlier?
Well, I think just more confidence. I think the step that we need to take as a team and as a program is when we're facing top 25 teams, we need to approach them the same way with the same confidence that we have when we approach any other team. And, we just did not do that this weekend. It's not that there was fear, but I think we let maybe the other team's ranking or the other team's numbers kind of get in our head and affect what we were doing. And we cannot do that, and when we come out against Marist, we are confident in what we're doing. We're back to who we are. And that's why you see the result that happens. So, at the end of the day, we've got to play our game and be ourselves no matter who we're facing. And like I said, unfortunately, this weekend, that's not the way we approached it. And, we've got to figure out how to be more consistent in our approach so we can come away and be more competitive against those types of teams.
Yeah. I've coached previously, not anywhere near your level, much lower levels of sports. But, I always made sure that we never brought up opponents' records, none of that, because it can be, you see a ranked number next to an opponent and it can kind of get in your head a little bit. So I think, I like what you say there. But now the next person I'm going to talk about, Emily LeGette. Chris can tell you, I've been on here, yelling from the mountaintops for her to get more recognition. I will say there's a particular school that's a bit farther south from Chapel Hill that I've gotten into some arguments with on Twitter when it comes to who is the best player in the ACC. But she continues to produce at a high level. Hit another home run over the weekend. She's at 18 on the season. In your opinion, what's made her not only so consistent, but so dangerous there in the middle of your lineup?
Well, she's just a talented hitter, and she always has been. She was on a team the previous 2 seasons that was really talented, and she was playing behind some people. So, coming here, she's had the opportunity to step into a more prominent role, and she's really taken it and she's run with it. She really has taking that role of being a force for us offensively day in and day out. And she's allowing herself to be confident in that role and to embrace it. And she stays very even with her approach and how she does things. But she's been a huge, huge addition and, has made a huge impact for us offensively. And she's one of the best hitters in the country. She's doing this against the best pitching. She's doing it in ACC play. Anytime we go out, she hit the home run against Arizona State. She's doing this against the best teams in the country, and just so excited. She's a Tar Heel and excited about what she's added to our team.
Yeah, I went back and watched Chris's sit down interview with her, and she just, it's not an arrogance at all, but you can see just kind of the confidence that she carries herself with. And I'm sure that, better than me, obviously, but I'm sure that kind of leaks out into the rest of the team, when you have that kind of quiet confidence, like I said, it's not an arrogance. It's not a, hey, I'm the, this incredible player, but it's like, hey, I can go up against anyone, any pitcher in the country, and I'm going to give them a fight. So she's, I've tuned into a handful of games, on ACC Network Extra, and anytime she comes up to the plate, it's must-watch TV for sure. But in the losses to Arizona State, so you lose 9-2, you lose 15-3. So unfortunately, a couple rough games there. But you guys had opportunities. You had runners on base several different times, but you weren't able to get them across. You weren't able to score. What do you feel was missing in those key situational moments with runners on base?
Yeah, we did have opportunities, especially in the first game. We had several opportunities to make it more of a competitive game, and I think just trying to do too much. I think there is such a thing as wanting it too much and trying too hard, and I think that that's what you saw from our hitters. Instead of just relaxing and trusting themselves, it was trying to force something, or just wanting it too much and trying too hard. And when you do that, that takes you out of your rhythm. That takes you out of kind of who you are, and makes it more difficult to be successful. And I definitely think you saw that offensively from us. I mean, we had the opportunities. We just, instead of allowing ourselves to be free in those moments, we tensed up and definitely took ourselves out of those moments. And that's something that we need to learn from. We need to learn from that as we move forward and get ready for Liberty and State and the rest of our season. We've got to make sure that we trust ourselves more. We're talented. Our offense can beat anybody in the country, and we have to trust that. We have to have confidence in that and not try to press when we're in those types of situations where we can, quite frankly, put us right back into the game or even take over a game against a quality team. We're capable of doing it if we stay within ourselves.
So let me ask you this. Is that kind of what the post-game talk is with the team, after a tough loss like that, knowing that you've got to bounce back and, and play Marist, is that kind of what you said to the team after those losses against Arizona State?
Yeah, I mean, Saturday specifically, we had a rough game against Arizona State, and the message to the team was, hey, what's in the past is in the past. Now, this is a test to see how are we going to respond? This is a test for us. We are very process oriented, and we have our core values that we rely on. One of our core values is being unbreakable. And this is a test to see, are we unbreakable? Are we who we say we are? Right. And let's see. And, I think that watching our players respond after that deflating loss. I mean, let's be honest, when you lose the way we lost in that first game on Saturday to Arizona State, that's a punch to the gut, right? I mean, for everyone, no one's happy with that. No one feels any type of good about that at all, right? I mean, we're all disappointed and frustrated. So, to be able to come together and make a decision that we're going to bounce back and we're going to show who we really are this next game. I mean, I'm very proud of our team for doing that. Would have been very easy to just roll through the next game and go through the motions. And, our team refused to do that. And that was the message. Like, let's come out and show how unbreakable we are. Let's show how we will show up after a loss like that. And for us to do it in the way we did, I was really proud of that in the circle and as an offense.
I'm glad this isn't in our notes or anything, but I'm glad you brought up your core values. Because I remember watching last week's episode of Coach's Corner. Your other core values was family, and that really stood out to me. I have a 4-year-old daughter. She loves baseball. She loves going to Carolina games with me. We get out there at least 3-4 times a week with her little tee and her little pink bat and get out there. And my hope is one day, we can get her into softball, as she gets a little bit older. But I loved what you said about kind of I didn't catch if you guys have a specific name for it, but it's kind of like the big sister program that you guys have. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. And it really builds that sense of community and family that I feel like not only the softball program, but a lot of the programs are about here at Carolina.
100%. I mean, it's called our Little Sis program. And, we're all about connecting with the community. I mean, our family is, our team, our teams, our players' families, their parents and their families, but it's also the Carolina family. And I think that's what makes Carolina so special is that, we're investing in each other. The town of Chapel Hill is the best college town in the country. And, they're investing in us and we're investing in them. And, we want to be able to give back to the community and connect with the community. And we want to inspire, little girls and young girls to want to be a part of a team and specifically softball. We want to get them excited about softball so we can grow the game here in the state. So yeah, family for us is not just about our team, but it's about the whole community as well.
And I like how Chris threw it in there last week, hey, these could be potential recruits one day. So maybe they'll remember that. But back to this weekend, across the weekend, when you have back-to-back days with doubleheaders, you got to kind of move players around. And you had some lineup adjustments. You moved Shelby Barbie, Michelle Tarpey, moving them around defensively. What did you learn about your team's flexibility and ability to adapt with those adjustments across the diamond?
Well, I mean, you have to be ready to adapt at a moment's notice when you're playing college athletics, right? You never know what's going to happen. And we've had some injuries at shortstop. We have two of our freshman shortstops who are out for the season. Reese Outlaw was out for a while and has just started coming back from an injury. So we've had some things happen, and it's important that people are open and willing to do whatever it takes and help the team wherever they can. Tarpey's a great infielder and spent a lot of time in the infield at her previous school. And, we felt like it was an opportunity for us to try something and just kind of see how it looks and how it works. And honestly, Michelle Tarpey brings such a great dynamic and personality to every situation. Part of it was just getting her personality in the infield, just getting her voice to the pitchers, getting her voice in there and her, just her demeanor and how she approaches things. I wanted to see it in the infield. And Shelby's always a reliable defensive infielder for us. So we thought it was a great opportunity to switch things up and see how it looked. And a good opportunity to get all the bats in the lineup, Kiwi, MC, and Tarpey's bat in the lineup at the same time, which we struggle doing with our defensive configuration. So we just wanted to see how it looked, and it was fun to see it.
Good stuff. One more question before we hop into previewing Liberty. And you've kind of already touched on this, but if you look at the full body of work, so I guess even going back to the Wofford midweek game and then the Mizuno Showdown as a whole, when you talk to the team as we head into Liberty and then NC State, what is kind of your biggest area of emphasis when you talk to the squad?
Well, it's just that belief factor that we can win every game, and we have to be ourselves in every single game that we have. I think that's what this week showed. We battled Wofford's a top 75 team, and we battled them, and it was a tough game and came out on top. And then this weekend, we're up and down. And at this point in the season, we have to be consistent with our approach. And if we're consistent with our approach, our play will reflect that. And I think that what you saw this week was just inconsistency with our approach. And we've got to learn from that. We've got to make that adjustment moving forward. This week we've got Liberty, who is a traditionally powerhouse program, and we've got them at their place. They have an amazing stadium, so we're going to get them at their home field. It's going to be a tough game. Last year they came in here and beat us. They were a super regional team last year. So, that's going to be a tough place to play. And then we have NC State, who is a much improved team from last year. And if you watched our series against them last year, they were 3 close games. I believe they were all 1 run. So we're talking about a really tough weekend, and we have got to take what we learned this week about being more consistent in our approach, and we've got to bring that to all 4 games this week.
Well, let's hop into it. Let's talk about Liberty and State, your upcoming games. I really like when you have a midweek game against a quality opponent. You touched on Liberty, a super regional team last year. You think of these non-Power 4 teams, and a lot of times it's easy, at least from a fan's perspective, when I'm going down the schedule, to kind of overlook that. But Liberty is not a team that you can overlook. They've had some really tough out of conference games. They've come up short in a handful of them, but you talked about how, they've got a really good history. With this Liberty team in particular, what stands out to you that makes them so competitive? And what are some challenges you think you will face, against them this week?
Well, they're just a successful program. So they have confidence. Their team has confidence. They're willing to go up against anybody. They can compete against anybody, and they're confident in that. They don't back down, or they don't play scared. They believe in what they're doing, and they show that when they play. So, we're going to be going to a place that, they're going to be ready to compete, and they're going to be ready, to give us their best. And that's how they approach everything. They know how to win. At Liberty, that softball program knows how to win, and that's how they come into every single game, with that extreme confidence. And then they're a talented team. This year's record doesn't show as well as last year's record for them, but they have played an extremely tough schedule, and they have been competitive in those games. So they're going to be a solid team all across the board, and they're very well coached. I have a lot of respect for their head coach. She does an amazing job in all aspects. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough atmosphere to play in. They have one of the best stadiums in the country. They have great fan support. So it's going to be a tough atmosphere for us. It's going to be a tough test.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question. You kind of touched on that, but is there a danger in facing a team that's pretty battle tested? Like you said, they don't have maybe the record that they would like this year, but this is a team that has made deep runs in the NCAA tournament. So what's the danger of facing a team that has been in those tough situations, even against quality non-conference opponents this year?
Yeah, I don't know if danger is the right word, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and for us, it's at this point in our season, we want to play those challenging opponents to test ourselves, to get us ready for our so we can learn more about ourselves as we're progressing through conference play. So for us, it's just going to be a challenge, to know that we're going to be tested at every single turn tomorrow. Our pitching is going to get tested, our offense is going to get tested, and their defense is going to be really solid. So we're going to have to really earn everything that we get. And I think that that's an awesome thing for us to face in midweeks. So we're prepared for our conference play during the weekend. That's kind of what we're doing the next 4 weeks. Every midweek we have is a challenge. Every weekend's a challenge. And I think that that's good for us to live in that challenge and make sure that we are on the top of our game for every single game that we go out there.
Now, I will say, I try to bring this up whenever me and Chris are on during the week, but I know this is a road game. So if there are fans out there that are wanting to tune in, I know I'm pretty sure you can listen on the radio if you go on Carolina's website, but the game is also on ESPN Plus. So that is wow, it's already the end of March. Tomorrow, March 31st at 6. So, if you obviously, there's no game no midweek game in Anderson, and really no game this weekend in Anderson either. But you can tune in on ESPN Plus if you don't want to make the drive to Lynchburg, Virginia. It's not a tough drive. So if you're like me, you're off work. Maybe that can be a game that tomorrow. I don't know. I might talk to my wife tonight and see if my daughter can stay home and we can maybe go up to Liberty. Maybe Chris, he can give me some recommendations of spots to eat at Liberty. But last question before we hop into NC State. Are there any matchups? Looking at Liberty's pitching staff, looking at their lineup, are there any matchup advantages that you feel like your team can lean into, take advantage of tomorrow?
Not necessarily. I think, softball, the matchup piece is a little less prevalent than in baseball. For us, it's about focusing on us anyway. And that's what we need to get back to doing. I think so many times we focus too much on the opponent and we want to be prepared for the opponent, but we need to get back to focusing more on us. I think this past weekend we got lost in that and focusing on Arizona State too much and not focusing in on us. So we want to shift our focus tomorrow. We want to be prepared for what they're going to do and be ready for it. But we've got to get back to having most of the focus on ourselves and being ourselves. That's what we need to do to get back on track and to make sure that we're prepared, not only to compete tomorrow, but to compete moving forward.
Good stuff. So let's hop into NC State. That is your series this weekend. Now, I am from a split family. So what I mean by that is my mom went to UNC. She's a huge UNC fan, but my dad is an NC State fan. And so I spoke about this on our very first episode of Hills on the Diamond, but early on I had to make a decision. Do I want to don the Carolina blue or do I want to don the NC State red? And I think I made the right decision. But because of that, NC State's a team that I don't care what sport Carolina's playing them in. I don't care if it's chess, checkers. I want to beat them at everything. So, as you transition back into ACC play and you've got a road test against the ACC rival, what is the mindset for you as a coach, but also for the team as a whole as you go into that weekend series?
Well, I grew up a Tar Heel fan. My dad went to Carolina. Now his father went to NC State. So I'm really, really glad that my dad chose a different path because I don't know how I would be. I can't imagine being an NC State fan, right? So for me, the loyalty to Carolina and that rivalry, it's huge. It's huge against NC State and Duke, right? I don't know if it's that way with everybody. I don't know if it's that way with the players on my team. I don't know if they look at it that way, but I try to instill that in them, because there is this rivalry, this long-standing rivalry between the two. I will say this, our mindset is what I just mentioned. We've got to get back to focusing on us and not get too lost in anything like that, in the matchup and in the rivalry. I think when you put too much life into things like that, it takes away from what's really going to help us be successful. So especially right now where we are as a team, I really want to see us locking in on us. Now, for me, that rivalry runs deep. And, at the end of the day, I share that with you. Like I have a lot of respect for their program and what they're doing. And they have a new head coach who's been there for, I guess, a few years now, who is looking to do some good things there. And she's doing a great job improving the program. But man, there's not much good I can say about NC State. So I'm excited to compete against them. And again, a lot of respect for them, but excited to compete against them and to be in that rivalry this weekend.
Let me ask you this: when you beat an NC State or you beat a Duke, or even I know I live in Winston-Salem, so when you beat some of these these in-state teams, do you go home with a little bit bigger of a smile on your face? Does it feel? I mean, how does that feel?
Yeah, I do. I mean, again, because I grew up with the rivalry. Like I grew up hating NC State and Duke, and unfortunately, we haven't beat Duke yet. They've had a World Series caliber team and a ranked team, and we have struggled against them the last 2 years. So we're hoping to change that this year. But yeah, absolutely. When you're playing those in-state opponents, there's a sense of pride there, right? That you want to represent your state. And at the end of the day, we are the University of North Carolina. We are the flagship university. So I take pride in that. And so for sure, I feel it. And I didn't know you were from Winston-Salem, Andrew. I'm from Walkertown. So right there next
to you. I'm from Greensboro, but my wife and I, we bought a house in Winston about 7 years ago, April. So we're coming up on our 7th year anniversary. I love Winston. I've spent time in Walkertown, Kernersville. So I do at some point want to move out to the Chapel Hill area, because I just Chapel Hill to me is the best part of the entire state. But Winston has grown on me, and I've got a soft spot. So I love this whole area. It's fun.
Have you been to Pulliam's? Pulliam's hot dogs? Have you been? The best hot dogs in the world. I highly recommend.
Pulliam's is great.
Yes.
Yeah, Pulliam's is great. Now I will say, so I live literally 4 minutes from Old Salem, and so the first time we went to Old Salem, I didn't realize that the original Krispy Kreme, there's a placard there at Old Salem that sits on the ground where the original Krispy Kreme sat. Mm-hmm. And so, when I saw that, I was doing it, telling my wife all about Krispy Kreme because she's from New Jersey. Okay. And so she believes that, and I know we're getting way off topic here, but she believes that Dunkin' Donuts is superior to Krispy Kreme. And so and she likes the cake donuts. And so, I walked her to Old Salem. I showed her that placard on the ground, and we had a good conversation about, hey, we are Winston-Salem residents now. We do not talk bad about Krispy Kreme.
Right.
If you have a favorite, keep that quiet. All right.
Yeah.
And nothing beats just a dozen hot glazed. I'm on a diet right now. I'm down 20 pounds. So I have to just drive by when I see that hot and ready sign. But yeah, Krispy Kreme is great. Pulliam's is great. Dario is a little fast food joint. If you're ever in the Winston-Salem area, I highly recommend Dario. They have good hot dogs too. But yeah, so that's my food spiel for the week, I guess. But getting back on track, talking about kind of proximity. You've got a handful of players on the team that are from North Carolina, but you also have players on the team who are not from North Carolina. You mentioned that you try to kind of show or talk about the rivalry with a team like NC State with your team. Do the players that live in that are from North Carolina, do they say anything to their teammates who are not from North Carolina, talking about, hey, we're 25 miles apart. Like this is not just another weekend series, or is it more coming from just your end?
Well, I think it comes from anyone that's lived in this area and kind of knows. I mean, if you come to North Carolina, you got to, whether you're from in-state or out of state, you're going to figure out really quickly that it's such a unique experience to have Duke and NC State, our rivals, so close. I mean, it's pretty cool that, all we have to do is hop on a bus and go down the road 20 minutes and we're at our rivals, field to play. So I think, you kind of figure that out pretty quickly. And it definitely comes from us, but also from the players too. And, it's every sport here, right? Every sport here, when you're facing State or facing Duke, it's a big rivalry game and it's talked about. So it's exciting to be a part of.
I will say, as someone who's on Twitter quite a bit, anytime Carolina loses to State, their fans are, it doesn't matter what the sport is, their fans are pretty obnoxious on Twitter. So I always, just hope and pray, hey, let's beat State. But when you look at NC State, they're 18-8 on the year, so they've had some success.
Mm-hmm.
When you scout them, what stands out to you the most?
I've really started, I've watched them all season, but really starting to dive deeper into their team. And gosh, they're just a much improved team over the previous 2 years. I think that they have improved in every aspect. I think offensively, they have shown a more balanced offense. Their 1 through 9 has done a really good job for them. They've played tough competition, and been tested. So that's something too that I've definitely looked at. And also their pitching, they got 3 pitchers who have thrown the majority of their innings, and all 3 of them have had some success and been able to hold offenses down. So, they're just a solid team and a much improved team. I think anytime you get a new coach, there's this process of, building and rebuilding and, kind of getting the program where you want it to go. And I think she is really progressed it along nicely the last few years. And she continues to help her team get better. And we see that now. I mean, they're definitely more consistent. They have a top to bottom better lineup, and their pitching staff has really kind of settled in and shown some successful outings, especially lately. So yeah, it's going to be a tough test. Two good programs going at it, and two rivals. It's going to be exciting.
Good stuff. You look at a team like NC, they've had some games where they were in it late and they've let it kind of slip away late. How do you approach a team that has shown lots of upside, right? You've talked about how they're just kind of, here, how you're doing here at Carolina, you're building a program. They're really trying to build a good program there too. So they've got a lot of upside, but they have also shown a tendency to let games kind of slip away late. What do you tell your team? Is it kind of, hey, always, all the way to the 7th inning, attack, because this team that we're playing, they've shown that they have a hard time kind of closing out games. So what do you tell your team when you look at that?
Yeah, well, absolutely, to continue to push and to put pressure the entire time. I think anytime and this is for us from this point forward, I mean, we can't coast at any point. We don't have that luxury to coast at any point, because we have also had the same issue that State has had, where we are in games and then at the end we struggle to close those games. So for us, it's about not ever feeling comfortable and not ever coasting. We want to make sure that we're pushing and we are putting pressure on a defense and on a pitching staff from the beginning of the game to the very end of the game. We don't get the last at bat there. We're going to be away. So we've got to make sure that we take advantage of every opportunity we get in the top of the innings to put runs on the board. So we're always putting pressure on their pitching staff and their defense. We can't rest on any score, on any amount of runs we've scored. We can't rest on that. We've got to continue to push.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that you guys have kind of been in those same shoes. I remember, and I don't want to, rehash anything, but you guys had the opportunity against Virginia, a ranked Virginia team, to win the series. And I remember Chris was at that game, and he texted me, he said, hey, I'm about to go, to the post-game, presser. I'm going to ask some questions. And, I'd been tuning in back and forth. I had some stuff going on, and you guys were a big late. And so later that night, I went and looked. I was like, holy cow. Like, no, they couldn't close it out. So I know that's frustrating, but I do think that, and again, I could be totally wrong here, but I feel like with you guys having been in that same situation before, it makes it a little bit better when you're playing a team like State, who can sometimes let games get away. You can say to your team, hey, we've been there too. We've let games get away that we don't let up. I think that's key right there too. But from your team's perspective, you guys went 2-2 on the weekend. What do you think you need to clean up as a team before you, even into the Liberty game, but definitely into the weekend series at State? What do you think needs to be cleaned up from your team's perspective?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about it earlier, just consistency with our approach, right? I mean, we need to make sure that we're locked in and approaching every game the same, no matter the name on the jersey. And, we have to get back to focusing on us and what we do well. And, I think we got away from that against Arizona State this past weekend, kind of got lost in the number of the ranking, I think. And we've got to make sure that, and I think we've done that in ACC play, to be quite honest. I think we need to get back to focusing on us and what we need to do to be successful. We rely heavily on our offense. We need to make sure our offense is, locked into their at-bats, making sure that we are working together as an offense and putting pressure every single inning and not resting on having one good inning. We need to make sure that we are pushing to have quality innings offensively every inning. And then I think, obviously, when you look at our season and you watch us play, our pitching staff needs to continue to push to be more consistent as well. We'll have a quality outing and then come out the next time and have a not so quality outing. And it's up and down, up and down. And we just need to see consistency. And I think a lot of that has to do with approach and confidence, making sure that they step into that circle and compete and not be afraid to compete. And for pitchers to be ready to come in to compete. We saw that this weekend against Arizona State. We needed to make changes to stay in games, and our pitchers came in not ready to compete. And so we've got to see that get better as we're moving forward. And especially against a team like Liberty and NC State, both have good offenses. We're going to have multiple pitchers ready to face them, and they all need to be confident and come in ready to compete.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I will say this: good luck. We've talked about it. I hate NC State, so it's good to win no matter who you play. I don't care if you're playing State, Duke, or if it's some school that's you've never even heard of before. We talked. Me and Chris talked. We had an episode earlier in the year where the baseball team played Lemoyne, and neither one of us knew where Lemoyne was from. It still felt good to win, right? But it feels a little bit better when you can beat an NC State. So good luck. But let's transition to our player spotlights. If you're new, if this is your first time tuning in, we like to kind of end each episode with a couple player spotlights. We talk a lot about a Barbie or an MC Eaton or obviously an Emily LeGette, but we like to touch on the entire team. There's lots of players who are a little bit younger that we like to talk about. So, Coach, we have two today. Talk to me about Skylar Young. What does she bring to the team? She is a sophomore out of Fayetteville, infielder. What does she bring to the Tar Heel softball program?
Man, I love Skylar. This is my favorite part of the podcast because I love our players so much, and they all are amazing in whatever role they're in. They're just amazing people and amazing players. But Skylar stands out because of her work ethic and her grit. She is a tough player, tough competitor. She is one of the hardest workers on our team. She is always working to get better on her own. She's always giving 100% in practice with every rep of every drill. I don't think she ever takes a rep off. She's locked in and focused. She's got great softball IQ too. She knows the game. And I love how she approaches things. Highly competitive. She takes things personal. Like she wants to, if we get beat, she wants revenge. She's ready to get back out there and go at it. Has a good motor, always on the go, always playing hard. never, I mean, if you watch her throw the ball, she's got one of the best arms on our team. She will throw it 100,000 miles an hour every time. She can't, like, she will not she will never put on the brakes. It's always full throttle, which is what I love about Skylar. And, she's a quiet player. She doesn't stand out like her voice, or, she's not loud. She's not loud in the locker room or loud in the dugout, or, she's more of a quiet player, but not in how she plays. She plays really loud. And, she's one of those that hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities yet here, but is getting better and better. And she's one of those too that you just remind, your career is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You've got 4 years to make an impact. And some people, start that process earlier than others. And she's just putting her work in right now to get ready to make an impact at some point. I know she will.
Yeah, I was kind of looking up. I love how GoHills.com has the player bio, no matter what the sport. And so I was kind of looking into her player bio. She played 19 games last year. So this is a player that, if unfortunately you have injuries, if there's an injury, that can come in and the spotlight won't be too big for her. She's been there before. And so I think that's huge to kind of have that depth on your roster. But
absolutely.
Next one, we also have Jill Livingood. She is a freshman pitcher from Wake Forest, North Carolina. Now, I've got family all over the country. My family's originally from Texas. I've got family in Michigan. I've got family in West Virginia. And I always have to explain to my family, now that I live here in Winston-Salem, that Wake Forest University is in Winston-Salem, but Wake Forest, North Carolina is about an hour and a half away. Right. So I just want to throw that tidbit in there. Like it gets confusing to my family when they come to visit who aren't from around here. But tell me a little bit about Jill, a freshman pitcher.
Yeah, Jill is from close by. She grew up a Tar Heel fan, so she is a true Tar Heel. She's one of those that have come to games and camps and basketball games her whole life. And so her dream was to wear Carolina blue. And she worked really hard to earn that opportunity. And we're excited that she's here. She's a pitcher, and she is someone that stepped in as a freshman and is someone that we're relying on to give us some innings. She's got great stuff, great movement. I think her biggest attribute is her demeanor and her confidence. When you watch her in the circle, she is going to attack hitters, and she's not afraid to do so. And, she is very competitive. And that picture you have up is perfect. That's a perfect picture for Jill. She's fiery. She's competitive. And what people don't know about her, you see her on the field and you see that, but she is, as a person, she is lively. She has got a personality. She's personality plus. She's always, I said Skylar's quiet and more, subdued in that respect. Jill is not. She is outgoing. She is, I think she could be an actress. When we do any type of team bonding or any type of thing where they have to present something, she's always the lead in that, the lead actress in that. She's so much fun to be around, and boy, does she love Carolina. She loves being here, loves being a Tar Heel. And, that for me is special because I grew up just like her, wanting to be a Tar Heel. So just really, really excited that she's here and excited what she's going to do. And for her too, just as a freshman, making an impact already. And she is not even close to where she's going to be. And we envision a very, very bright future for her here.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Looking at her stats, she's pitched over 15 innings already this year. And for a freshman, that you look at it as a great opportunity as a freshman, but you're even more excited by the time she's a sophomore, a junior, a senior, to say, hey, she could be, one of the key pieces of a really talented team moving forward. One final question before I let you go, because I know you're super busy. Speaking of Jill Livingood, is it a little bit easier to recruit someone who grows up a UNC fan? Like when you go into those meetings, with her, is it a little bit easier to say, hey, I kind of feel like maybe we got this one in the back pocket because that she was such a big fan growing up?
Well, I mean, is it easier? Of course, right? If their dream was to play at Carolina and it matches up in the lines that, we're recruiting them, of course, and, it's a special thing too, though. I mean, it really is. There is a different feeling when you've grown up wanting to do this and you get the opportunity. So much gratefulness that she has and thankfulness is exactly how I was as a player here and how I am as the coach here. I'm grateful, thankful, blessed to be here. She exudes that every day. It's fun to see that she looks at things differently than other people, I think, because of her love for this place. And she's had that love for a long time. So it's a special thing.
Yeah, she's probably not one that you have to worry about, telling, hey, NC State's a big rival. She knows.
Yep, she knows.
Speaking on that, as we come to a close here, those of you out there who are giving this a listen, tomorrow, we're recording this. It'll go live on Twitter tonight, but tomorrow, March 31st at 6, you guys are at Liberty. Watch that. This weekend at NC State, that's April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. That is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Hey, we talked about the proximity to Raleigh. It's not far from Chapel Hill. Get out there and let's get some Carolina blue there in the NC State ballpark. But good luck, Coach. We as always, we appreciate you hopping on with us. Good luck. Safe travels to Liberty. We hope we can come back next week and we can be talking about a lot of wins. And I know Chris always likes to end the show with one particular phrase. So we'll do that here. Until next time, go Heels.
Go Heels.
Thank you for listening to Heels on the Diamond, presented by Heels on Franklin. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like it, drop a comment, and share it with another Carolina fan. That support goes a long way as we continue to grow. You can find all episodes of Heels on the Diamond on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. So whether you like watching or listening, we've got you covered. If you're looking for Carolina football coverage, be sure to check out the Tar Pit podcast, which you can also find on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. You can also find us on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search Heels on Franklin and you're in. Until next time, go Heels.